We are back with another live episode of Bully Ball on the Gold Standard Podcast Network. I'm Jason Aponte, joined as always by Steph Sanchez. Steph, this is a Denver Nugget question.
Oh no!
Come
Why?
on, what was the
Why are we
parade
gonna
like?
start with these? I was
Was it?
out at the parade.
I
Why?
don't know. You don't have to be at the parade. The inconvenience is you're trying to drive somewhere in Denver. You can't get there because the parade's going on. Nikola Jokic is drunk out of his mind, and this the what is it? The Denver coach is dressed like he's from Modesto. That's for my Cali people. Is apparently I stole that joke by the way, but there was nothing like you couldn't tell that there was a parade in your city. A parade in your city.
I live outside of Denver, so no, I couldn't tell. In fact, I went most of the day forgetting that it was even the parade day, and then I was like, oh, I started seeing tweets about it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's happening today. I guess there was like a shooting at some point, like afterwards. I'm like, man, Christ, man, Colorado can never chill with the shooting. Like y'all be crazy, but anyway, besides that, I think it looked like at least the players and everyone there had fun. There was like what 750,000 people there. Where are these people coming from? Paid actors, I think.
First championship in Denver Nuggets history. You didn't think that they were going to pull up and show out?
No. Because like I
What?
said, they haven't been out here, Jay. Like they have not been representing this team
All right.
until they won.
I think you've kind of made it clear that. All right, I'll ask you this: if the Colorado Rockies found a way to win a World Series, you are saying that would be bigger than what the Denver Nuggets just did.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll say this. I think more people would be into that here. I think their parade would be bigger. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. All right. Well,
Based on what I've seen.
if you didn't know, that's usually how I start the show is to get people in here as well. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to all the channels, follow us all on Twitter as well. Steph, in the spirit of Spider-Man Multiverse, right? I thought it would be fun to, well, not me, you guys actually, you and Rob actually.
It was all Rob.
Rob actually came up with something that's Rob, great job, buddy. And it has nothing to do with the quarterback position. Oh, wait, I lied.
Wait. Oh, yeah.
Oh. So, long story short, when it comes to the Spider-Man movies and the multiverse, is there are different versions of ourselves in these multiverses, right? There's a Jason in another universe that is short. There's a Steph in another universe that's really tall. Like those are the types of variants that we have, right? So when we think about hypotheticals, and this was a great way to just talk about something completely different and have a fun little episode. But there's alternate 49er timelines in terms of decisions that were made that altered the change of the franchise and pushed it in a different direction. And I think there's three timelines that we would like to outline, kind of just discuss what the ramifications of it would be and how much we would enjoy either of these things, right, Steph? So you want to start with the first one? Universe. I love that Rob called this one Universe 8 because it revolves around Kirk Cousins. So
Oh, that's okay. That's what the numbers were for.
yes. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, yes. All right. I'm going to explain it this way too for Steph and for everybody out there. So this first one is Universe 8. And this one has to do with Kirk Cousins. So the Niners finish out 2017 with their top draft pick, and they actually signed Kirk Cousins as opposed to trading for James Richard Garoppolo in 2017, where they won 5 games. They would have a higher pick because they probably lose out the rest of those games with CJ Beathard or whoever was going to be starting. First of all, this one kind of bothers me the most because then it robs us of Jimmy Garoppolo and the drama that is around him. Miss you, buddy. Hope you're doing good over there in Vegas, by the way. But Steph, what if this team has a higher draft pick? And I think the best thing to do is to pull up who was available in this draft and where the 49ers actually drafted. But what are your initial thoughts on this while I get that up so we can talk about that?
So if you're looking at the 2017 draft, and let's just say the 49ers were maybe within the top 3 in the 2017. Well, they were. They got Solomon Thomas
yes,
in
2017.
Right? So,
yes.
But if they got the top one, let's say their 2017 season was even worse, and they got the top pick, they would have gone away with Myles Garrett, which I like. I would of course be down with that. That's brick by brick was the mantra of that time, that he would have been someone you could have, started building around. Definitely would have been a better pick than Solomon Thomas. What do you think? Do you like that, or would they have gone with Trubisky?
Well, wait a sec. Isn't this based on the 2016 season? Right? So this isn't the 2017 season and that Rob?
So
Rob,
let me help it out. If I remember correctly, Cousins was going to be a free agent after
He
2017.
was.
oh yeah,
He was.
2018.
It would be the
2018 or
2018
the
draft.
2016.
So
Gotcha.
it's the 2018 draft because in 2017 the 49ers traded for Jimmy
you're right.
Garoppolo. Thank you, buddy. That was really good. So we can turn this one around. So you still would have wound up drafting Solomon Thomas. Sorry, this multiverse doesn't give you a change in that one. But this one here,
do over.
the 49ers ended up at 9 with Mike McGlinchey. But they won 5 games before that. And they would have most likely, let's say for all intents and purposes, been 1-15, which would have been the number 1 pick.
Mm-hmm.
But would they have drafted Baker Mayfield? No, because they're waiting for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Would they have drafted Saquon Barkley? No. Sam Darnold? I don't know. Kyle.
Wait. Why do you think they wouldn't have drafted Barkley?
A running back that high. I mean, I hope they wouldn't. I mean, that would have really sent me over the edge. Well, let's just say, all right. So do you want to say that they do?
But the 49ers at that time, if I recall, their running back room wasn't good enough to scoff at the idea of Barkley, right? And you're trying to build your roster.
I'm kind of thinking about where the 49ers were with the way that they built their roster at the time, right? So like Bradley Chubb is there.
Yeah.
Would he have been there at number 1? This is a very big quarterback draft. And that's why I guess the 49ers, when they saw their chance to get Jimmy Garoppolo and to get the first pick, they really wouldn't have been in on any of these quarterbacks. They probably would have shopped the pick more than anything, right? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I agree with you.
All right. So they stuck at 9 and they got Mike McGlinchey. But maybe they would have ended up a little bit higher. What if they would have taken Quentin Nelson?
I like that. I was a huge Quentin Nelson fan. I wish he would have fallen to 9. Yeah, I would have liked that.
All right. Let's do this. If Quentin Nelson is on the board at like 3, and the 49ers, let's just say they won 1 more game, because the NFL is weird, right? We can't assume the 49ers would have just lost out. So let's just say they won 2 games, but they ended up around 3 or 4. Let's just say for this exercise, in this multiverse, the 49ers draft Quentin Nelson, and then they sign Kirk Cousins after the season. Now, what are the ramifications? Are the 49ers happy with this?
After which season?
Isn't it this year that they signed Kirk Cousins this year, the 2018 season?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they signed Kirk Cousins and they get Quentin Nelson.
That'd be very solid.
That's your team that goes into Minnesota week 1, and then Detroit week 2, right? And then that Kansas City game in which Garoppolo tears his ACL. Do the 49ers, are they in better shape going forward? Now, you have to remember, the multiverse, when you change something, it changes another thing. Now, Diego has pointed it out. Kirk Cousins probably plays all those games in 2018. Jimmy Garoppolo got injured in 2018, which put them in number 2. Now, I am not sitting here telling you that I was happy that Jimmy Garoppolo got injured. It's just the matter of fact that it led to that. But if you get Kirk Cousins has been healthy his entire career. Never once has he missed a game, I don't think. So you have him for 2018. Do you think the 49ers in 2018 with Kirk Cousins, that roster, him playing the entire time, do you think that they're a playoff team?
Yes, I want to venture yes, just because, yes, they were a very young team and, they were still getting to that point of, the brick by brick and all that. But I think they could have done it just because Kirk Cousins, I think, is that good of a quarterback that he would have, lifted you up to be able to make the playoffs. But I think that's it. That would have been their ceiling in 2018.
Okay. So the 49ers make the playoffs in 2018 with Kirk Cousins, you think? And I don't think that that's a crazy statement. I think that that's something that seems fair. But In 2019, the 49ers end up with Nick Bosa as a result of the Jimmy Garoppolo injury, and now that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So you got Kirk, you got Quentin Nelson, but you missed out on Bosa. So I guess the bigger question, the larger question is Kirk Cousins and Quentin Nelson, or Jimmy Garoppolo and Nicholas Bosa. That's really what we really need to figure out here.
And in that scenario,
playoff year 2018, and you would have a back end pick in the first round in 2019. That's tough. That is tough.
That's tough. I know it's tough to like say that you would basically throw away a season because that 2018 season was basically a throwaway. But because we got Nick Bosa and we know how good Nick Bosa is at this point in time, I think we would look at that season and be like, yeah, like 100%. Let's do it again. Because like Jimmy Garoppolo and Nick Bosa, I think that is the difference between Jimmy Garoppolo and Kirk Cousins. I don't think is huge enough for me to want to pick Kirk Cousins and Quentin Nelson over, Nicholas Bosa and James Garoppolo.
And as Rob pointed out, are they in position to draft Deebo Samuel? See,
another question. That all puts, of these, yes, everything else would be. You don't know if they'd end up with the same players, free agent even, because let's not forget Kirk Cousins. He got a fully guaranteed contract from the Vikings in that 2018 season when he signed with them. What does that look like for the 49ers? Would they have done the same thing? What does that do with roster construction? You know what I mean? So you got to think about all of that. It would be completely different makeup of this team if Kirk Cousins is on it in 2018.
And this is Miguel O'Hara's Spider-Man 2099's biggest problem with messing with the multiverse is that there are canon events, things that need to happen. And if they don't happen, then everything goes haywire, right? It's the butterfly effect. Change one little thing over here, and then something crazy happens over here. So, I see Mike drops with Monsa. I think that's a great point right here with his donation. He says 2019, no Super Bowl appearance because the defense is gone. So you put off a year of making the playoffs, right? You don't have the electricity of 2017 in those 5 games with Jimmy Garoppolo, but you kind of lose sight of the forest to stare at the trees because 2019 was so great having Nick Bosa, having Deebo Samuel. So in this regard, this one feels like a little bit more of a doomsday scenario more than a course correction because of not having Nick Bosa, not being able to get Deebo Samuel, not having that stacked defense that you were able to have in 2019, right? Being able to trade for D Ford. 2018, you make the playoffs. 2019, you take somebody else that's in the back half, and who knows if your team doesn't slide. I'd be hard-pressed to put a 2019 team with Kirk Cousins, Quentin Nelson, whoever they would draft in the first round, against this 2019 team with Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Bosa, Deebo Samuel, and everybody else, and feel good about that.
Yeah, I agree. And I really want to talk about the next one.
Yes, this one's great.
This is Universe 12, in which the 49ers have Tom Brady after they trade Jimmy Garoppolo after the 2019 Super Bowl collapse. And of course, as we know, Tom Brady was a free agent, was interested in signing with the 49ers at that point in time.
And you still have Bosa and Deebo. Exactly.
And as we know, that almost happened. And as we also know, it did not. So let's talk about the pros and cons with this one. One of the cons, Tom Brady was 42 heading into the 2020 season. If you go back and just compare like this Kirk Cousins universe to this Tom Brady universe, in 2018, Kirk Cousins was 30 heading into the 2018 season. Not that that's super young, but he would have obviously given you, a lot of years on the team, whereas Tom Brady, probably more of a short-term stint, as we know. By the way, Kirk Cousins and I have the same birthday, August 19th. I'm a little younger, though.
It's happening. Uh-oh.
No.
Yeah. Well, all right.
But I think that's something to consider too. The ages, but also what do the makeups of these teams look like? So we already talked about Kirk Cousins, how it may be just a little more difficult to construct the roster around a potentially fully guaranteed contract that like Kirk Cousins got with the Vikings, and Tom Brady, who, he's 42, so maybe you can kind of swing a team friendly deal, maybe a hometown discount one time for the one time. I kind of like that scenario. And also, we would have had Nick Bosa and we would have had Debo among other guys on this team as well. So for the most part, Tom Brady would be more of a plug and play kind of situation. And I think I like that for this team because I really do like the way that the 49ers constructed their roster. And to have that missing piece, the quarterback, and have that guy be Tom Brady, Jay.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of cons with that, except the fact that he was 42.
So I want to go back to how people felt when this was on the table. And I'm not going to lie. If a 49er fan tells you that everybody was on board with bringing Tom Brady in, I would have to call bullshit. Okay? Coming off of 2019, even that Super Bowl, there still was this idea of, well, that was just Jimmy Garoppolo's first season. Let's see what we got with the guy. And I think people forget the public perception around Tom Brady, who threw a pick six in his final game at Foxborough against the Tennessee Titans and lost in the wild card round. And the large sentiment around Tom Brady was, this man is washed. I'm going to hold my own feet to the fire on this one and say, I said I don't want him. Let's roll with what we got. Let's roll with our guy. Hindsight is beautiful, and it's 2020. If you drop Tom Brady off to this team that next year, does he get injured like Garoppolo does? Let's just say for this exercise, the 49ers lose Nick Bosa to that turf. The 49ers have that rotation, and their defense was still top 5. Yes, this is the one that you really bang your head against the wall about. This one right here. This is it. Hindsight's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But I don't want people to get into this revisionist history thing where it was like, well, I knew it was No. The large talking point was, I'm done. Tom Brady's done. I don't want him. Let's roll with our team. We're good. We'll be back. We're loaded. Don't lie to yourselves. Don't lie to yourselves now. But at the same time, yeah, this is the one right here. I mean, 24 touchdowns and 8 interceptions in 2019. And the large talking point around Brady was he's washed. Mm-hmm. Now, fast forward to 2020, he has Mike Evans, he has Chris Godwin, he has Bruce Arians, a very high-powered offense. I don't want to say that New England was like that. I think they had a bit of a problem with weapons at that time too. I think that's something that we lose. 40 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and they win a Super Bowl because they had a great defense. The one thing that we can't predict, and we don't live in a perfect world, is the injuries, because that 2020 team was decimated by injuries. But having said that, if everything happens the same way, but Tom Brady plays all 17 games and they go and 16 games, whatever, and they go into the playoffs, they win the Super Bowl. They win the Super Bowl. This one hurts the most.
I think so too. I really think like that's the difference between these two universes that we've talked about so far. It's, do you want a long-term solution at quarterback with a quarterback that would be capable of taking you to the playoffs every season in Kirk Cousins, or would you go for the short-term route, but a route that you probably can say with more certainty you could have probably gotten at least one Super Bowl with? Because I just know that 49ers would have gotten that number 6 if Tom Brady had joined. Like, I just know it. Because everything else, the way they were constructed, they were built for that. They were just that one, missing piece away. And as we know, Tom Brady, the greatest of our era, they would have done it. Kirk Cousins, on the other hand, he's a really good quarterback. And I think he'd be great under Kyle Shanahan. And obviously we know that Kyle Shanahan loves him. But I think he lacks in some of the big moments, he has lacked some of that I'm him gene,
Yeah.
that he has those two moments. You like that, the dancing with the chain moments, but those aren't the biggest moments. Like always in when it comes to the season being on the line and the game is on his back. I don't know. Maybe it's part of it is because some of the defenses on the team he's been on. Let's not forget that he has had the short end of the stick there at some points, but there's still something that lacks there where he can't really carry the team. Whereas someone like Tom Brady could, Jimmy Garoppolo kind of had the same issue, right? Jimmy Garoppolo also couldn't carry the team in the Super Bowl. So I think it would be more of the same with Kirk Cousins, maybe just a little bit better.
Here's the thing, too, and a lot of people forget about the Super Bowl, is it would have been the Chiefs again. But the Chiefs had the most unlucky brutal stretch of injuries to their offensive line. I mean, we all remember that 2020 Super Bowl in which Pat Mahomes is running around playing Madden, just trying to stay, like literally hiking the ball and running away because he knows that nobody's blocking for him. Does that happen as well, too, while Brady's there? Because if it doesn't, can the 49ers defense hold Tyreek Hill and Kelsey again and Mahomes if they have the offensive line? A lot of what ifs in this discussion. But this is the one that is always going to haunt the 49ers, I think, a little bit more. In terms of hindsight's a beautiful thing, but I would say the large majority of 49er fans were still backing Jimmy Garoppolo under the idea of, hey, look what he did in 2019. He can only get better, right? Like, that's not his ceiling. We'll be back. We're young. All of those things were being said. But it was wrong. And I was one of the people that said that. So I was completely wrong. Let's see. We have another donation from Mike Drops with Monza. Love the alternate universe idea. Definitely. That's Rob. Got to give him credit there, especially with Spideyverse out. I wanted to trade Jimmy after 5 wins because he didn't fit Kyle. Bad feet, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions with no tape. Trade for pick calls and draft Lamar Jackson. That should really be Universe 8. Thank you for the generous donation, by the way, as well, too. But I don't want to turn this into like a Jimmy bashing thing, but the fact that the team won those games, it kind of took away from the fact that he had 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's not a great touchdown to interception ratio. And he had some turnover luck, like where some interceptions were dropped. But on the other hand, to play devil's advocate, you could say, hey, he was working with a whole new team and trying to get everything right. And, I think the large thought about him was, well, if he can do this on the fly without learning the offense and having rapport and no real weapons, imagine what you can do with Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't want this discussion while we're talking about hypotheticals to turn into something where we revise history and change our thinking. It's okay to revisit history and say, this is what I thought then. This is why I thought it. This is where I got it wrong, right? I think all of those things are true. And if you were ahead of the game, then that's why you're a smart man, Monsa. I'll be honest with you. But for me, it's hard for me to sit here and act like we weren't excited in 2017 and we didn't have these thoughts. So I would say no to Cousins in any multiverse. Hey, what if there's a multiverse that Kirk Cousins is really him? Like, he's him. Like, there are multiverses where Kirk Cousins doesn't wear, socks with thong sandals and doesn't yell, you like that, right? Or he's just a stone cold killer. What if that's the multiverse that we get Kirk Cousins in? I think we're just living in this one where it's like that. And Tyler says, Steph and Jason, do you think this team is overall better than the 2019 team? Steph, I'll let you take this one.
Yes, I really do think they are, but I think, of course, there's some give and take there. There are some areas, there's some, units that I think you can maybe make the argument that was better back then than they are now. I might say the defensive line might have been better in 2019 just because they did have D Ford in those few games where he was available. And when he was, that made a huge difference for that defensive line and that defense as a whole. So right now, you look at the defensive line, and there's some question marks there, right? Outside of Nick Bosa. But overall, I do think this team is better than the 2019 team. I do.
This is what gets me so mad about the 2019 team. Bosa Ford, Buckner, Armstead.
So good.
God, how do
So
you
good. That
not?
defensive line was so good. Like,
How do you not
how
get
did
it
they
done with
not?
that line? My God. I mean, all four of those guys are certified studs, man, at that time. Oh man. I'm going to find Doctor Strange and make him change it so we win that one. All right. Our last universe, and you saw Universe 8 has to do with Kirk Cousins. Universe 12 has to do with Tom Brady. Universe 5 has to do with Trey Lance. And I want to preface this one because it's about Trey Lance never gets hurt and beats out Jimmy G in 2021. I want to preface this with I don't really feel that there was ever a real competition in terms of that year. I think it was nice to showcase it and maybe say things like that, but I don't think that there was ever really a full-on competition that Trey Lance could win. But let's just say in this universe, it's an open competition. Kyle Shanahan isn't trying to put a stranglehold on everything and control everything. This time he just wants to, let's see what happens. Hey, you know what? He's happy-go-lucky Kyle. He's not stern, you don't know ball Kyle Shanahan. He's like, I'm here. I'm open to discussion sometimes. But in this universe, Trey Lance never gets hurt and beats out Jimmy Garoppolo in 2021 and starts the season. Steph, I'll start with you.
Well, look, if Trey Lance started over Jimmy Garoppolo in 2021, it was because he would have looked so far and beyond good, in the preseason and training camp, so far ahead of, Jimmy Garoppolo that they kind of would have had to make that decision, right? This one's tough for me. The Trey Lance universe, I feel like it just holds way too many unknowns for me to put all my eggs in that basket. I mean, we're talking about changing the course of history here. There's a lot riding on this decision and whatnot. So I don't know. Out of all the universes that we've spoken about, this is the one that I don't know if I can just put all my baskets or all my eggs into that basket. I can't do it. If humanity was on the line here, like I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna pick the one that has Tom Brady just because we know what Tom Brady is. He's, so no offense to Trey Lance, like obviously, but I couldn't do it. What about you?
All right. People aren't going to like this answer. The 49ers probably don't make it to the NFC Championship game if Trey Lance is there as the quarterback. But what you get is you get the development process. There are games that the 49ers won in 2021 with baseline quarterback production. That's really all you needed because the team was so loaded. I would say that there were going to be moments that were going to be lower than baseline with Trey Lance, but there would be moments that were higher than Jimmy Garoppolo. And that optimism of those high moments is what the fan base will be focused on. You would be sacrificing a season that you make it to the NFC Championship game. I do believe that. But what 49er fans who wanted Trey to start in 2021, it wasn't because, we're all hands on deck. Trey's about to go to the Super Bowl. I think everybody just wanted to see the development start so you don't waste the rookie contract and you start to get him moving in the right direction, because by year 3 is the year that you would expect him to take whatever leap you expect. I don't like the Josh Allen one. I think that's too hard to say, whatever. But in year 3, by year 3, you would have hoped to have large enough sample size that you say, I know what this kid is going forward. And I think that's what when you live in this universe that Trey Lance starts, you would get the moments of eye-popping play, eye-popping games where you were just like, oh my God, when this all locks in and he becomes consistent, this is about to be a mess for everybody else. But you're going to get those games that while Jimmy Garoppolo gives you that baseline, Trey would be under that in certain games and you wouldn't be able to go as far. Not that the 49ers went where they went because of Jimmy Garoppolo. Let me reiterate that before you start going crazy. But games like Green Bay, right? Like the Week 17 game against the Rams. You've got to get down the field and you've got to score to send it to overtime. I don't know if you would be able to count on him in the same way that you would be able to look at what Jimmy Garoppolo did. And that's not Jimmy Garoppolo's super clutch, just talking about that moment. This alternate universe is about development. It is
Yeah.
about development. That's all that matters, is about development. It's not about wins. It's not about going over the top. It's about looking at your number 3 pick, starting him immediately, and starting to see what you can possibly have down the line. And that's where the patience never was with him in the first year. That's what I think, Steph.
And that's why I think, like, when you look at the 3 different universe options that we've laid out here, the most unlikely for probably most of us to pick would be the Trey Lance one, because you're going up against known things, the safe things, and you don't have as much patience for, the development, right? So in a way, it kind of just, encapsulates everything that the 49ers and where Trey Lance is now, right? Like, that's kind of the Trey Lance experience to this point, has been like the no patience for development, right? So yeah, when you're looking at how good the team is, and you feel like you're just a quarterback away, or you just need a quarterback who doesn't mess things up, like,
And just gives you a little bit more, like, it's just a little bit more, right? Like, I think
Yeah.
that's where we kind of were. We weren't like, he has to blow everybody away. He
Yeah.
just has to be a little bit more, like, cause more stress on the defense. Maybe that comes with his legs while he's developing. I think it's just a little bit more. And that's it. And that's always been my argument. It's not Trey Lance needs to come out and be a top 5 quarterback. Just give a little bit more, just a little bit more, while not messing things up, like you said, Steph.
Yeah, but because there would be those ups and downs, like with Lance, there's some feeling of just like not feeling super comfortable with that compared to some of the other things, even though there would be some ups and downs there too, potentially. But you go for the sure things, I think, when you have to look at everything and make decisions for the team. Yeah.
And the thing is too, is let's say we go to that week 17 game in SoFi, and let's say Trey Lance starts moving the ball and gets down the field, and he gets them and you know what? He throws a pass that bounces off somebody and it gets intercepted. Okay, your season's over. You're not going to the playoffs, but you watch the kid be poised enough to get you that close, and you have to start feeling like, again, this is where we're going. This is where we're moving. This is going to be our guy. So that's what makes this one so hard. This one comes with a bunch of patience. This one comes with, you understand that you're not going to have the same success that you did in 2021. But the optimism that you would gain from what you've seen from the highs of Trey should offset what you think about what's going to happen, with the team in the future, right? Like, it was about looking into the future. And I think that's what this exercise is about. Steph, let's do it, because I know we're under a time crunch.
This was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. I love this episode. Shout out to Rob again, man. Rob, do this more often. Bleep it out, man. But I think we are both in agreement, right? Universe 12, right?
Yeah. Without a doubt. I mean, it's short term. We know this, but we accept that because we know at the end there would be at least one Super Bowl. And that's what's so funny about people who laugh at like the Rams for doing
Winning
what they
one.
did and winning one, and like now they they suck and their roster is like what it is, right? Everyone's like, but like they won a Super Bowl. Like you would do the exact same thing if you knew that it would lead to a Super Bowl. So Tom Brady all the way. If it's just 3 years, I don't care. As long as there's a Super Bowl at the end, like let's do it.
I love that discussion. I think that should be another discussion for another day. While we stay away from talking about the quarterback position. Thank you guys again for tapping in. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to all the channels. But if you were guaranteed one Super Bowl, but your team was absolutely sorry and dog shit for a bunch of years after, would you trade that for being a team that is constantly in the mix, constantly gives you a chance? You're not guaranteed to win a Super Bowl, but you're not guaranteed to not win a Super Bowl. I don't know what the hell that meant. But that is always going to be a good discussion. I love that discussion because people say, I'd rather contend. Well, contending without having the idea of getting the Super Bowl. But again, if you win the Super Bowl and you do it organically without this magic genie or whatever Dr. Strange telling you you're going to, doesn't that make it sweeter than just knowing you're just gonna win one and you're gonna know right there, like it's already predetermined?
contending is nice in the moment because like, you're enjoying it, right? Like contending is fun. It's fun to know that your team is good enough to, get into the dance every single year. But what's even funner than that is winning a Super Bowl. And in actuality, no one remembers contenders. Everyone remembers the Super Bowl winners. You know what I mean? No one's gonna remember if you were a good enough team 5 years but didn't win any Super Bowls. So that's my argument for it.
Yeah, man, this was really fun. Shout out to Steph. Shout out to you guys for tapping in. Thank you for the donations. Make sure you guys like these videos, subscribe to all the channels. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your audio podcast. Make sure you're subscribed to, you're following GSN Podcast on Twitter and GSN 49ers on Instagram. Jason Aponte 2103 on Twitter, at Steph 49K on Twitter as well too. For Steph, for Jay, go have some dinner, Steph. Thank you guys. We're out of here.
Peace.